My name is Teresa. I'm 32 years old. After 3 long years of relentless work, endless late nights, and sacrifices, I never even admitted to my friends I finally got what I'd been chasing, a promotion to head of the finance department. When my boss announced it, I felt my chest rise with a mix of disbelief and pride. For once, my effort wasn't invisible. For once, I had something undeniable to show for all the times I'd been overlooked at work, and if I'm honest, in my family too. I wanted to celebrate properly, not just with champagne at the office, not just with a congratulatory dinner from a few close friends. I wanted to share it with everyone who mattered. My parents, my aunts and uncles, cousins. I grew up with my younger sister, Peggy. Even though things between us had always been complicated, I still hoped she'd be proud of me. So 2 weeks before the big day, I sent out invitations. My family, my colleagues, my friends. The invite wasn't just about the promotion, it also carried a secret. I had bought my first apartment. My name was on the deed, the keys jingled in my pocket, and I had spent weeks preparing to reveal it as a surprise that night. When I sent out the invitations, my mom texted almost immediately. "Why is this at some random address instead of your apartment?" I smiled to myself and typed back, "It's a surprise. You'll see when you get there." That was it. She didn't ask further. At the time, I took it as a good sign. The morning of the party, I woke up with the nervous energy of a bride on her wedding day. I had everything arranged: catering, drinks, fresh flowers, soft music cued on a playlist. My new apartment smelled of polished wood and lemon cleaner. The marble countertops sparkled under the lights. I kept glancing at the clock, half excited, half terrified. What if no one came? But soon the doorbell rang. My friends poured in first arms full of wine bottles and congratulations. My colleagues followed, offering hugs and inside jokes about office politics. The air filled with laughter, clinking glasses, chatter, bouncing off the freshly painted walls. Yet, my family wasn't there. At first, I told myself they were just running late. My parents were notorious for arriving an hour behind schedule. Peggy probably had to pick the right outfit as always. But then another 30 minutes passed. An hour. And that gnawing, familiar feeling crept into my stomach, the feeling of being forgotten. I kept glancing at the door, trying not to let my friends see my unease. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Sorry, honey. Don't expect us tonight. We're at Peggy's promotion party. She got promoted from junior manager to regular manager today. We had to be there for her. Have fun." For a moment, I didn't breathe. My eyes burned as I read it again, each word twisting like a knife. Peggy's promotion, the same day as mine, the same hour as my party, and no one thought to mention it until now. I forced a smile for my guests, excused myself, and pulled my friend Mike aside. Mike wasn't just anyone. He was the one who ran the company where Peggy worked. "Mike," I asked quietly, "did Peggy really get promoted?" He frowned, genuinely confused. "Promoted, no. Not at all. I told her months ago I'd keep an eye on her performance, maybe consider her for a promotion down the line, but nothing has happened yet." Why? My stomach dropped. So it was true. Peggy had lied. She had fabricated an entire promotion just to pull my family away from me. And worse, Mom and Dad had believed her without question. They hadn't just believed her, they'd abandoned me for her again. I excused myself, blinking fast so my mascara wouldn't run. Back in the center of the party, I clapped my hands and announced brightly, "Eat up, everyone. There's plenty. Don't let it go to waste." Inside, my chest was heavy, but I refused to let Peggy ruin this night completely. If my own blood wouldn't celebrate me, then I'd celebrate with the people who showed up. I asked each guest to take a plate of food home. Later, with Sarah by my side, I walked door to door, introducing myself to new neighbors and handing them homemade platters. It wasn't the party I had imagined, but by the end of the night, my apartment was full of laughter again, even if none of it came from my family. Still, when the lights dimmed and the door shut behind the last guest, silence fell heavy over the apartment. I looked around at the hardwood floors I'd saved 2 years for, the gleaming kitchen where I'd spent countless weekends cooking budget meals, the windows framing the city skyline like a promise of everything I'd earned. I should have been proud. I was proud. But the emptiness in my chest whispered louder than the echoes in the room. This was supposed to be the night my parents finally saw me, finally recognized what I'd built for myself. Instead, they were across town at a fake party celebrating a lie. And the cruelest part, I wasn't even surprised. The morning after the party, I sat cross-legged on the floor of my new apartment, surrounded by stacks of untouched food containers and half-empty wine glasses. The sun streamed in through the big windows, but instead of warmth, all I felt was that old familiar ache, the reminder that in my family my achievements never seemed to matter as much as Peggy's whims. It wasn't just last night. It had always been this way. I remembered being 15, begging my parents to let me join a summer program. They sighed, said money was tight, and told me to be grateful for what I had. A week later, Peggy came home with brand new luggage and a ticket for a beach trip with her friends. Mom had helped her pick out 3 new dresses so she wouldn't feel left out. I remembered applying for college, working like my life depended on it. I earned a full ride at a state university. I thought my parents would be proud. Instead, Mom's only comment was, "That's nice, Teresa, but Peggy deserves something better." 2 years later, Peggy announced she wanted to go to a private school with tuition that cost more than our house. My parents took out a loan without blinking, even though her grades barely scraped her in. The pattern never changed. If I worked for something, it was invisible. If Peggy wanted something, she got it no matter the cost. And now she had invented a promotion, stolen my spotlight, and convinced my parents to abandon me on the most important night of my life. I told myself I was done being surprised, but my heart still twisted. I had wanted my family to see the apartment to be proud that their oldest daughter had built something on her own. Instead, the only sound I had last night was the echo of my own heels against the hardwood floor. I tried calling Mom. "Hi, Mom, why didn't you come yesterday? I invited you 2 weeks ago." Her voice was airy, almost annoyed. Well, honey, Peggy's promotion was such exciting news. We had to be there for her. But why did she plan her party on the exact same day as mine? It was just a coincidence. A sigh. "Sweetheart, don't be jealous of your sister's success." I froze. Jealous mom. I just got promoted to department head. Peggy wasn't even promoted. I checked. "Teresa, you're being dramatic like always. You've been jealous of Peggy since you were children." I stared at the phone, her words buzzing in my ear like static. Dramatic. Jealous. Always. It didn't matter what Peggy did. They would always find a way to make me the villain. I ended the call before my voice cracked. That afternoon, I posted some photos from my party on social media, smiling with my colleagues, laughing with Sarah, the city lights glowing behind us. The caption read, "A night of new beginnings, promotion, new home, and the people who showed up to celebrate. Feeling grateful." Within an hour, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Missed calls, dozens of messages, not from friends from my parents and Peggy. They wanted to know about the new apartment. Suddenly they cared. I ignored them. That evening, a knock rattled my door, then pounding. When I looked through the peephole, I almost didn't believe my eyes. My parents, Peggy, standing there like they had a right to barge into the one space I had claimed for myself. I opened the door slowly. "What are you doing here?" I asked, voice sharp. "We need to talk," Dad said, stepping inside without waiting for an answer. Peggy brushed past me, next her eyes scanning the apartment. Her jaw dropped. "This is impossible," she breathed. Her voice climbed an octave. "How did you afford this?" "I saved. I worked." My tone was flat. But I need a place like this," she stammered. Then suddenly her face crumpled. She collapsed onto my sofa, sobbing so loudly I was sure the neighbors could hear. "It's not fair. This should be mine." I watched her theatrics with cold detachment. The old me would have tried to soothe her, but that version of me had been buried last night. "Peggy," I said calmly, almost smiling, "if you need an apartment like this, you can easily earn one. After all, you just got promoted, right?" Her sobs stopped on a dime. She looked at me with wide, panicked eyes. I leaned against the counter. "Funny thing, Mike told me there was no promotion." The room shifted. Dad's brow furrowed. "What's this about no promotion?" Peggy's face flushed crimson. She shot to her feet and screamed, "Fine. There was no promotion, okay? But what was I supposed to do? Teresa planned this whole party just to humiliate me again. She always has to show off her job, her apartment, everything. She just wants to make me look bad." Her words rang through the apartment like a slap. Dad walked over and wrapped his arms around her. "Don't worry, sweetheart. We understand. You had no choice." Mom rushed to her side, rubbing her back. "Of course, honey. We know you were just protecting yourself." I stared at them numb. My sister had lied to the entire family, ruined my night, and now somehow I was the villain again. "You should be ashamed of yourself," Teresa, Mom snapped, glaring at me. "Making your sister feel so bad about her life that she felt she had to lie." I wanted to scream. Instead, I swallowed the lump in my throat and said nothing. Because at that moment, silence hurt less than fighting a battle I knew I couldn't win. A few weeks passed. Work kept me busy, and I buried myself in long hours, determined not to think about the humiliation of that night. Still, whenever I came home to my empty apartment, the silence reminded me of everything I'd wanted to share with my family, but couldn't. One quiet Saturday, I was scrolling through the photos on my phone. Shots from the promotion party I hadn't posted yet. Sarah laughing with a glass of wine, colleagues clustered together on the balcony, the glow of the city behind us. I hesitated, then uploaded them to my social media. Maybe it was petty. Maybe it was me trying to reclaim what was stolen from me. But the truth was, those photos captured something real a night where the people who cared about me showed up. An hour later, my phone buzzed. Peggy's name lit up the screen. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me. "How could you do this to me?" Her voice was shrill, trembling with rage. "Do what I asked," flatly. "Post those pictures." My boss saw them. He was in one of the backgrounds. "Now he knows you were trying to sabotage me." My chest tightened. "Peggy, what are you even talking about?" "You told him not to promote me." "I know you did." I pinched the bridge of my nose. "Actually, Peggy, I'm the one who got you that job in the first place. Remember those company brochures I gave you last year? Remember how I asked Mike to give you a chance, even though you didn't have much experience? If anything, I helped you." Silence. For once, she had no snappy comeback. Finally, she spat. "I don't have time to wait around for promotions like you do. I want to be successful now. By the time I'm 30, I'll be a CEO somewhere." "Peggy," I said softly, "I waited 3 years for this promotion. You've been at your job less than a year. Success doesn't work on demand." Whatever, she snapped. "Keep acting like this and you'll get fired before you ever get promoted again." Then she hung up on me. I thought that was the end of it. But later that night, as I scrolled my feed, my stomach dropped. Peggy had posted a long rant tagging me by name. She accused me of always being jealous of sabotaging her career by whispering in her boss's ear. Her words were venomous. "My sister has always tried to ruin me. She can't stand that people like me better. She'll do anything to make me look bad." My hands shook, but I didn't type a word in response. I didn't need to, because Mike saw it, and beneath her post, he left a comment that silenced everything. "Peggy, after reading this, I can see you're unreliable and dishonest. I was actually considering promoting you before, but now I definitely won't. I also realized you threw a fake promotion party the same night as your sister's real one. This behavior is unacceptable." The comment exploded with likes, dozens of them. Family members, colleagues, mutual friends, all staring at the truth in black and white. By morning, the tide had shifted. Relatives who once ignored me were now commenting on my photos instead. "Sorry we missed your party, Teresa. Congratulations, you deserve it. Are you planning a housewarming? We'd love to come." I leaned back against my pillow's phone in hand and exhaled a laugh that was half relief, half disbelief. For the first time, people were seeing what I had endured for years. So I decided to throw a proper housewarming. This time I invited everyone except my parents and Peggy. The night of the party, my apartment was overflowing. Aunts carrying casseroles, cousins balancing drinks, laughter, spilling into every room. For once, I didn't feel like the outsider. For once, my family seemed to see me. At one point, Aunt Lisa pulled me aside, her voice low. "Teresa, we've noticed for years how your parents treat you differently. But that whole fake promotion stunt, that was over the line." My cousin Mark nodded beside her. "We always wondered why you had to work twice as hard for half the recognition. It makes sense now." I swallowed hard, blinking back tears. It's been like this my whole life, but I'm done making excuses for it. They both squeezed my hand, a small gesture, but one that warmed me more than any approval I'd ever gotten from my parents. That night, as I stood on my balcony looking over the city, I realized something. Peggy's lie had backfired. The mask had slipped, and now the rest of the family could finally see what I had lived with all along. But deep down, I knew the battle wasn't over. If there was one thing I'd learned about my parents, it was this: no matter how ugly the truth got, they would always find a way to protect Peggy. And sooner or later, they'd come knocking again. The morning after my housewarming, my phone lit up with Mom's name. I almost let it ring, but something in me wanted to hear what excuse she'd come up with this time. "Teresa," she said, the moment I answered, her voice sharp. "Why didn't you invite us? After the way you treated your sister, the least you could do is let us come to your party." I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tighter. "You mean the sister who lied about a promotion hijacked my celebration and made me the villain in her story? The sister you chose over me again." "That's not the point. We're your parents. We should have been there." I laughed bitterly. Family shows up when it matters, Mom. Family doesn't text you an hour into your party to say they're at someone else's. You forfeited your right to be here. She gasped as if I had slapped her. Don't you dare talk to me like that. We've always done our best for you. Her words echoed years of excuses of favoritism wrapped in denial, and in that moment I felt something shift. I was tired of arguing, tired of waiting for recognition that would never come. I'm done, Mom, I said quietly but firmly. If you can't even acknowledge what Peggy did, then I don't want this conversation anymore. I hung up before she could reply. For the first time in years, I felt a strange calm settle over me, like I had slammed a door that should have been closed long ago. The weeks that followed were peaceful. For once, my phone wasn't buzzing with constant drama. At work, I threw myself into projects, and my team respected me in ways my family never had. My evenings were mine. I joined Sarah for yoga classes, started cooking more, even let myself explore dating again. And then one afternoon, Mike called. Hey, Teresa, thought you'd want an update. His tone was half amused, half exasperated. About what? Your sister, she caused a scene yesterday. My heart sank, though I wasn't surprised. What happened this time? We promoted Jennifer from accounting to senior manager. Peggy lost it. Right in the middle of the office, she started screaming about how unfair it was, how she deserved it more, said the whole company was against her because of you. I pressed my palm to my forehead. Oh, God. She stormed into my office, accused me of discriminating against her because she's your sister. Then she quit. On the spot. Said she didn't want to work for such an unfair company anyway. I sighed, guilt curling in my stomach, even though none of this was my fault. I'm sorry, Mike. You didn't deserve that. Don't apologize, he said firmly. You warned me months ago about her attitude. I should have listened sooner. After we hung up, I sat for a long time staring at the city skyline from my window. Peggy had finally self-destructed, but the fallout was only just beginning. A few days later, my cousin Jessica called. Her voice was hushed, like she was sharing a forbidden secret. Teresa, have you heard Peggy moved back in with your parents? I closed my eyes. What happened to her apartment? She couldn't afford rent after quitting her job. Mom says she's been moping around the house, refusing to apply for anything. She even turned down 3 interviews because the positions were beneath her. Of course she did. Jessica hesitated. And your mom has been calling everyone asking if they know of job openings. She's basically begging the family to help Peggy find work. I almost laughed. The irony was too perfect. And I bet I'm next on her list. I didn't have to wait long. A week later, my phone rang again. Hi, sweetheart, Mom's voice sang with false sweetness. What do you want? I asked flatly. I was hoping you could help your sister. You have so many connections in the business world. Just a small favor, introduce her to someone, put in a word. No, her tone sharpened. Teresa, she really needs work. That's not my problem. She's your sister, family helps family. Family doesn't lie about fake promotions to ruin your party. Family doesn't throw tantrums when you succeed. And family doesn't constantly excuse the same bad behavior for 26 years straight. Stop holding grudges, Mom snapped. She's learned her lesson. Really? Has she apologized to me? Has she admitted what she did? Silence. Then she hasn't learned anything. I steadied my voice. Don't call me again about this, Mom. When Peggy takes responsibility for her actions, maybe we can talk. Until then, I'm done being her safety net. And I hung up. For the first time in my life, I felt free. Not guilty, not burden-free. Because I finally realized cutting them off wasn't cruelty. It was survival. The silence that followed my last phone call with Mom was heavier than I expected, but not in a painful way. It was liberating. For the first time, weeks went by without guilt-tripping texts or late-night calls demanding I understand Peggy's feelings. My evenings were quiet, filled with things that nourished me, pottery classes, long walks through the park after work dinners with Sarah where we laughed until tears rolled down our cheeks. At the office, I felt lighter too. My team noticed. You've been glowing lately, one of my analysts joked. And maybe she was right. Without the constant background noise of family drama, I had more space to breathe, to focus, to lead. Peggy, meanwhile, was a storm unraveling in slow motion. Cousin Jessica became my reluctant informant. She'd call me once or twice a month, always with a new update. Peggy turned down another interview she whispered one evening, said the position was beneath her. Another time she's been sleeping until noon expecting your mom to do her laundry. Your dad's losing patience. And later they're fighting constantly. Peggy screams that no one supports her dreams, but when they ask what her dreams even are, she has no answer. Each report left me with a strange cocktail of emotions. Anger, sadness, pity, but mostly relief. For once, it wasn't my responsibility to fix the chaos. Months passed. My life kept blossoming. I earned a raise for exceeding quarterly goals. I started dating a man named David who was warm and steady in ways that felt foreign after years of instability. He celebrated my wins without resentment, listened without judgment. Sometimes I caught myself waiting for the other shoe to drop, for him to dismiss me the way my parents always had, but instead he'd just smile and say, "I'm proud of you, Teresa." And slowly I started to believe it. One evening, I came home from a date with David to find my phone flashing with missed calls 5 from Mom, 3 from Dad. I sighed, debating whether to return them. Against my better judgment, I pressed call back. Mom answered on the first ring. "Teresa, finally. We need to talk about your sister." Of course, always Peggy. "She's been out of a job for almost 2 months now," Mom continued. "She's struggling. She really needs your help. Couldn't you use your connections, just one little favor?" "No," my voice was firm, steady. "But you don't understand." "I do understand. I understand that every time Peggy makes a mess, you expect me to clean it up. I understand that you've spent my entire life excusing her behavior while criticizing me for being too dramatic or too jealous. I'm done playing that role." There was a pause. Then incredulously, Mom said, "She's learned her lesson, Teresa. She knows she made mistakes." "Has she apologized?" I asked quietly. Silence. "Has she admitted she lied about her promotion? That she ruined my celebration? That she dragged my name through the mud online?" More silence. "Then she hasn't learned anything," I said. "And until she does, don't call me again asking for favors. I won't do it." Teresa Mom's voice cracked, half pleading, half angry. "You're her sister." I closed my eyes, exhaling the words I'd been holding back for years. "And she's never acted like mine." I hung up. My hands trembled afterward, not from guilt, but from release. For decades, I had been cast as the villain, the jealous daughter, the difficult sibling. Now, for the first time, I was rewriting the script. That night, I poured a glass of wine and sat on my balcony, the city glittering below me. David texted home safe. "Had a great time tonight." I smiled, letting the peace wash over me. For once, my story wasn't about them. It was about me. The updates kept coming, whether I wanted them or not. Jessica would call after family gatherings, her voice hushed, but tinged with disbelief, like she couldn't believe the stories she was telling me were real. "Peggy finally found a job," she whispered one evening. "Receptionist at a dental office. Everyone thought maybe this would stick. But guess how long it lasted?" My chest tightened. "A month." Jessica laughed bitterly. 3 weeks. She got into an argument with the office manager about her schedule, refused to cover for a coworker who called in sick, said her time was more valuable. When they told her that's not how the job worked, she threw a fit and quit on the spot. I closed my eyes. The image came so easily, Peggy, arms crossed, voice raised, certain the world owed her more than she'd earned. "She came home furious," Jessica continued. "Told your parents they didn't support her dreams. When your dad suggested she should at least try to hold down a job, she accused them of sabotaging her future." I pressed the phone to my ear, silent for a long moment. "And they still defend her, don't they?" Jessica sighed. "Your mom does. But your dad, he's cracking. He actually told her she needs to start contributing to household expenses." That caught me off guard. My dad, the man who had always stood back while Mom coddled Peggy, finally drawing a line. "What did she say?" I asked. "She had a meltdown. Screaming, crying, threatening to move out. She told them if they didn't stop pressuring her, she'd cut contact completely. Said she doesn't need parents who hold her back." I laughed before I could stop myself. The irony was too rich. So she's threatening to do to them what I actually did. Jessica chuckled too, though there was no joy in it. "Pretty much. Except you had reasons. She just doesn't want to face reality." After we hung up, I sat in my apartment staring out at the glowing skyline. For years, I had been painted as the ungrateful one, the dramatic one, the child who didn't understand family. And now here was Peggy throwing the same threat in their faces, and they couldn't stomach it. A week later, the inevitable happened. Mom called. Her voice was frazzled, strained in a way I hadn't heard before. "Teresa, we're at our wits' end. Your sister refuses to get out of bed before noon. She leaves dirty dishes everywhere, expects me to cook for her, and won't even fold her own laundry. Your father is furious. He told her she needs to grow up. And do you know what she said?" I waited. "She screamed that we're the reason she's unhappy, that we've held her back her whole life. Can you believe that?" I closed my eyes, biting back the bitter words on my tongue. "Yes, Mom. I can believe it, because you made her that way." But instead of saying it outright, I asked calmly, "So what do you want from me?" Her silence spoke louder than any plea. Finally, she whispered, "I was hoping you might talk to her, help her see reason." I almost laughed. "No, Mom, that's not my job. It never was." "Teresa, please." "Stop. You created this. You spent her whole life protecting her from consequences. Now she's drowning in them, and you want me to be the lifeguard. No. I'm not saving her from waves she created herself." Her breath hitched. "You sound so cold." Or maybe I said softly, "I've just stopped burning myself trying to keep someone else warm." I hung up before she could respond. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, torn between a familiar guilt and a newfound strength. The guilt whispered that I was abandoning my family, but the strength reminded me they had abandoned me first. Peggy's life was crumbling, yes, but it wasn't my fault, and it wasn't my job to fix it. 6 months later, the news came through the family grapevine. Peggy had finally moved out of my parents' house. She found a couple of roommates, Jessica told me over coffee, and she's working part-time at a retail store. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. But she complains constantly, says the job is beneath her, that her coworkers don't respect her potential. I shook my head, a humorless smile tugging at my lips. Of course she does. "And your parents?" Jessica sighed. "They're exhausted. They've been reaching out to everyone else in the family more, almost like they're trying to fill the void." I didn't ask what void she meant, Peggy's or mine. Maybe both. At first, I felt a flicker of pity for them. But then I remembered standing in my apartment months ago, hearing them tell me I should be ashamed for making my sister lie. The pity evaporated, replaced by the steady resolve I'd built piece by piece. Meanwhile, my life kept moving forward. David and I grew closer, slipping into a rhythm that felt easy in a way I had never experienced. Sunday mornings with coffee and newspapers sprawled across the table. Evening runs through the park where he matched my pace without trying to outdo me. Quiet dinners where he asked about my day and actually listened. At work, my reputation soared. The finance department ran smoother than ever, and my CEO pulled me aside one afternoon to say, "Teresa, this department has never been in better hands." For once, I didn't feel the urge to shrink or deflect. I stood tall, thanked him, and let myself own the recognition. My apartment had transformed too. The blank white walls were now dotted with artwork from local galleries, each piece a quiet reminder of my independence. A pottery bowl I'd made sat on the coffee table, crooked and imperfect, but mine. The space was no longer just a home, it was a sanctuary. One evening, I hosted a small dinner party for friends and neighbors. As laughter filled the kitchen, I caught myself looking around the room, almost expecting my mother's sharp criticism or Peggy's sulky glare. But there was only warmth, only people who wanted to be there. Later that night, as David helped me clear dishes, he paused looking around the apartment. "You've built a beautiful life here, Teresa." I froze, the words hitting deeper than he probably realized, because they were true. I had built this, without my parents, without Peggy, without anyone dragging me down. But even as joy spread through me, I knew my parents wouldn't stop trying. They'd reached out to cousins, aunts, anyone who would listen. Sooner or later, they'd circle back to me. And when they did, I would have to decide let them back in or close the door for good. A year passed before my parents tried again. By then, my life looked nothing like the one they'd dismissed so easily. At work, I had been promoted again senior finance director, now managing 3 departments. My team trusted me, and the CEO himself congratulated me in front of the board. The girl who once felt invisible in her own family had become impossible to overlook in her career. David and I had grown serious. He'd met my friends, my extended family, even Jessica, who gave him her subtle seal of approval. We'd started talking about moving in together, and the thought didn't scare me. With him, everything felt steadier, easier. I was even thriving outside of work. I joined a book club, ran my first half marathon, learned to shape clay on a wheel. My life was full, textured, alive. And then one evening, as I was folding laundry, my phone lit up with an incoming call. "Mom." I almost didn't answer. But some part of me, the old reflex, the little girl still craving her mother's approval, pressed accept. "Teresa," she said, her voice unusually soft. "We'd like to see you. Maybe dinner this weekend." I hesitated. "Why?" "Because we miss you. Because you're our daughter, and we love you." A hollow laugh escaped my throat. "If you loved me, you would have shown up to my promotion party. If you missed me, you would have called to congratulate me when I was promoted again 3 months ago. Instead, you only call when you need something." There was a pause. Then carefully she asked, "What promotion?" That told me everything. "I'm senior director now," I said flatly. "But of course you didn't know that. You weren't paying attention." Teresa, that's not fair. No, I cut in. What's not fair is having parents who only care about what I can do for them. What's not fair is spending my whole life being told I'm jealous, dramatic, selfish, while you handed Peggy the world on a silver platter and never once made her earn it. Her voice sharpened. Peggy is struggling right now. I almost smiled at the irony. Peggy is struggling because you never let her struggle before. You protected her from every consequence, and now she doesn't know how to live without someone bailing her out. She just needs a little more help. No, she needs to grow up, and you need to stop asking me to fix what you broke. There was a silence so deep I could hear her breathing. Then quietly she asked, "So what do you want from us?" What I wanted was impossible. I wanted the parents I had dreamed of as a child, the ones who celebrated my wins and held me when I failed, the ones who made me feel safe instead of invisible. But those parents didn't exist. I don't want anything, I said finally. I'm done. I hung up my hand steady. That night, I sat on my balcony as the sun dipped below the skyline. My apartment glowed warm behind me, David's laughter floating from the kitchen as he opened a bottle of wine. For the first time, I felt it in my bones. I was free. Family, I realized, wasn't about blood. Family was about respect, about people who showed up when it mattered, who celebrated you without resentment, who stood by you without demanding pieces of yourself in return. And I already had that kind of family, friends, cousins, colleagues, and a partner who loved me for exactly who I was. I no longer needed to chase scraps of love from people who would never give it freely. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the scapegoat, the villain, the forgotten child. I was simply Teresa, 32 years old, and finally at peace.